A commercial oil tanker, redesigned as a floating airbase, hundreds of feet long and packed with secretive technology, is quietly reshaping global naval power. The official story calls it practical and cost-effective, but that leaves out the real stakes. These shadowy giants could make distant oceans feel like American territory overnight. How did an idea this bold change what war at sea means? Inside a San Diego shipyard in the early part of the decade that began in 2010, a program manager from the Navy and a NASSCO engineer met over a set of blueprints that at first glance looked like any other commercial oil tanker. The hull belonged to the Alaska class, a workhorse of the crude oil trade. But the Navy had a different vision, one shaped by years of watching access to overseas bases slip away and threats to fixed infrastructure grow. The question was not how to build a new warship from scratch. It was how to turn a proven commercial design into something the Navy could send anywhere, without breaking the budget or waiting a decade for delivery. The manager remembers the pitch. Keep the hull, keep the engines, but strip out the oil tanks and replace them with mission spaces, aviation decks, and modular support systems. The engineer recalls the skepticism. Could a civilian tanker really become a floating base for helicopters, boats, and special operations? The answer came from the mobile landing platform and the afloat forward staging base prototypes, which proved that commercial hulls could be adapted for military needs. By 2015, the Navy had rebranded these as Expeditionary Transfer Dock, known as ESD, and Expeditionary Sea Base, known as ESB, reflecting their growing role beyond simple logistics. The new designation was more than a name. It signaled a shift in thinking. Instead of relying on distant ports or fragile alliances, the Navy could bring its own base wherever it was needed. For the people behind the project, it was a lesson in pragmatism. Use what works, adapt what is proven, and build for the realities of modern conflict. Stretching 785 feet from bow to stern and spanning 164 feet across the beam, the Expeditionary Sea Base dwarfs most other ships in the fleet. At full load, it displaces close to 90,000 tons, nearly as much as a modern aircraft carrier. But where carriers are built for speed and power projection, this vessel is engineered for endurance. A diesel-electric propulsion plant drives the ship at a steady 15 knots, giving it a range of more than 9,000 nautical miles before refueling. That means it can cross oceans or remain on station for months without returning to port. Above the reinforced hull, the four-spot flight deck dominates the silhouette. This vast expanse is designed to handle some of the Navy's largest helicopters, including the MH-53E Sea Dragon, as well as the versatile MH-60 and the tilt-rotor MV-22 Osprey. Unlike smaller decks found on amphibious ships, this one supports simultaneous operations on all four spots, allowing for rapid launch and recovery cycles. The integrated hangar, carved out of what was once a tanker's cargo hold, provides sheltered maintenance and storage for aircraft and mission gear. The ship's size and design are relentlessly practical. Every inch is optimized for utility, whether supporting mine countermeasures, special operations, or logistics. The ESB does not need to outrun threats. It needs to stay put, serve as a platform, and keep operations running far from shore. The scale and capacity of the flight deck are the foundation for everything that comes next. Before dawn, the quiet of the ship is broken by the soft shuffle of boots and the low hum of machinery. Civilian mariners from Military Sealift Command head to the bridge, coffee in hand, ready to navigate the next watch. Navy personnel, in crisp uniforms, make their way to operations centers and planning rooms. The Expeditionary Sea Base, ESB, hybrid crew model brings together two worlds. About 44 civilian mariners keep the ship running, while roughly 100 Navy sailors handle mission operations and security. On top of that, the ship can host up to 250 additional personnel, special operations teams, mine warfare units, or staff, depending on the mission. Chain of command is a careful balance. The Navy commanding officer, a captain, holds ultimate authority, but the civilian master is responsible for the ship's navigation and engineering. On the bridge, a civilian mate on watch stands beside the Navy's anti-terrorism tactical watch officer, each focused on their domain. Watch rotations run around the clock, blending merchant marine traditions with military discipline. Berthing spaces are tight but functional, with men and women from both crews sharing the same corridors and mess decks. Daily life is shaped by routine, joint drills, maintenance checks, and meals that bring together people with different backgrounds and expectations. Friction sometimes flares, especially during high-pressure missions, but over time mutual respect and shared purpose foster a sense of camaraderie. For many, the expeditionary sea base is less a ship and more a small floating community, one that must work together, far from home, to keep the mission on track. In August 2017, a crowd gathered at a pier in Bahrain as the Navy commissioned the USS Louis B. Puller. It was the first time a United States warship had ever been commissioned outside American waters. The ceremony, attended by senior United States and Bahraini officials, was more than a formality. With this single act, the Navy placed a fully operational sea base at the center of the Persian Gulf, a region where fixed bases are never guaranteed, and the threat of mines and asymmetric attacks is constant. The Puller replaced the aging USS Ponce, taking over as the Fifth Fleet's floating hub for mine countermeasures and special operations. Its arrival meant that United States commanders could stage helicopters, boats, and mission teams right where they were needed, without relying on vulnerable ports or negotiating new basing rights. The ship's modular decks and aviation facilities gave regional task force leaders a tool they had never had before, a persistent, mobile platform that could adapt to the tempo of crisis and conflict. For local commanders, the Puller became a symbol of American commitment in the Gulf. Its presence complicated adversary planning and reassured partners who watched shifting alliances with concern. The ship's ability to support mine-clearing teams and special forces missions, all from international waters, offered a new kind of flexibility that would soon be tested in other corners of the world. USS Herschel Woody Williams arrived in the Mediterranean as the first U.S. Navy warship permanently assigned to Africa Command. Forward deployed to Ceuta Bay, the ship operates across the Mediterranean, the Gulf of Guinea, and West Africa, regions where American bases are few and partner navies face daily challenges. Instead of relying on fixed installations, the Williams uses its endurance and modular decks to stay on station for months, rotating blue and gold military crews to keep operations continuous. During recent deployments, the Williams has become a familiar presence in the Gulf of Guinea, where piracy, illegal fishing, and drug smuggling threaten coastal nations. The ship's helicopters and small boats support maritime patrols, while its mission deck hosts joint teams for boarding and interdiction. In 2023, the Williams took part in Exercise Grand African Nemo, training alongside Senegalese maritime forces to track illicit vessels and practice coordinated responses. Earlier, the crew worked with Sierra Leone, Cape Verde, and Ghana during the African Maritime Law Enforcement Partnership, helping intercept unlicensed fishing boats and disrupt trafficking networks. This training blends operational practice with capacity building. Port visits in Lome and Tema have strengthened diplomatic ties, while the ship's ability to embark partner forces turns it into a floating classroom and command post. For African and European allies, the Williams isn't just a symbol of U.S. commitment, it is a practical tool for building skills, sharing intelligence, and responding to crises in real time. On the mission deck, a row of containerized control stations hums with activity. Operators monitor live feeds from small drones circling above the ship, while technicians prepare a scan eagle for launch. The expeditionary sea base's modular design turns empty space into a nerve center for unmanned operations, supporting air, surface, and subsurface vehicles from a single floating platform. Launch and recovery gear can be swapped out as new systems come online, and the ship's communications suite links each drone to mission planners in real time. Even now, most drones are small and specialized, reconnaissance eyes in the sky or robotic boats for mine countermeasures. But every new container, Every antenna added pushes the sea base closer to a future where unmanned systems multiply its reach, letting a handful of crew project presence across hundreds of miles of open water. When the Navy reclassified the Expeditionary Sea Base from a support vessel to a commissioned warship, it was not just a change in name. The move gave commanders more freedom to use the ship for a wider set of missions, including direct combat roles under the law of armed conflict. This legal status means the ESB can operate closer to contested waters, with clear rules for self-defense and engagement. The decision also brought the ship under stricter Geneva Convention protections, clarifying the status of everyone aboard, even as debates continued over the risks faced by civilian mariners. Behind the scenes, Pentagon analysts weighed the cost savings of using commercial hulls against the need for survivability and flexibility. Shipyard advocates and regional commanders argued for more ESB ships, citing their value as floating bases that could be deployed wherever United States interests required, without the political baggage of foreign ports. In the end, the reclassification unlocked a new kind of naval real estate, mobile, adaptable, and ready for the demands of modern conflict. Today, U.S. sea bases quietly anchor influence in regions where permanent land bases are impossible. As global tensions shift and unmanned warfare evolves, these floating platforms redefine how power is projected, far from headlines, but closer than ever to tomorrow's front lines. What would you deploy from here?
In 1937, Japan secretly greenlit a warship so colossal that no navy, before or since, has matched its scale. The official plan claimed this monster would guarantee victory. History proved otherwise. Concealed beneath roofed dry docks, it carried guns so large their true size was disguised from the world. But when doctrine collided with reality, this titanic gamble turned into a warning for generations. Why did leaders risk everything on the most absurd battleship ever conceived? And what doomed their vision before the ship even fired a shot? Naval planners in Tokyo believed victory at sea would come down to a single decisive clash. This idea, called Kantai Kessen, dominated Japanese naval thinking for decades. Staff officers and admirals studied war games and memos, convinced that a battle between rival fleets, with each side unleashing its full power, would decide the fate of nations. The Imperial Japanese Navy's entire strategy revolved around preparing for this duel. They looked back to the lessons of Tsushima in 1905, where overwhelming firepower and careful planning delivered a stunning win. To repeat that success, they needed ships that could outgun and outlast any enemy. The 8-8 Fleet Plan, formalized in staff papers after World War I, called for a corps of 8 battleships and 8 battle cruisers. Every new design, every budget request, returned to this vision. Even as treaties tried to limit ship sizes, Japanese planners quietly sketched blueprints for vessels that would break those limits when the time came. Memos from the 1930s show a relentless focus on gun size, armor thickness, and the ability to survive hits at long range. Officers debated how to create a ship immune to enemy shells, especially the 16-inch guns of the United States Navy. By the mid-1930s, the drive to build the ultimate battleship was more than a technical challenge. It was a matter of national pride and survival. The staff doctrine demanded a ship that could dominate the Pacific in a single overwhelming confrontation. This belief would shape every decision that followed, and it set the stage for a warship unlike anything the world had ever seen. Japan's withdrawal from the Washington and London naval treaties in 1934 set off a chain reaction that no one could stop. With every restriction gone, naval architects found themselves in a race with no finish line. Each new rumor of American or British battleship designs fueled demands for even more ambitious plans. By 1937, the pressure inside the Naval General Staff was so intense that compromise seemed impossible. The only answer was to go bigger, heavier, and more powerful than anything imagined before. One historian describes the mood as a kind of fever. There was a sense that Japan had to leapfrog the West or risk being crushed. Every ton of steel, every inch of armor became a statement of national will. The leadership was convinced that only a ship of unprecedented size and strength could guarantee survival in a future Pacific War. Internal memos from 1937 show staff officers arguing that anything less than a main battery of 46 centimeters would be an admission of weakness. The planners were locked into a mindset where escalation was the only option. By the time the first Yamato-class keel was laid in late 1937, the arms race had become a runaway train. The design process churned through dozens of drafts, each one pushing further past the limits of existing shipyards and steel production. By 1941, the stakes were so high that the entire project became a point of no return. The Imperial Japanese Navy had bet everything on the idea that raw size and firepower could still decide the fate of empires. Stretching 263 meters from bow to stern, the Yamato-class hull dwarfed every battleship before it. At full load, the ship weighed in at nearly 72,800 tons, about 30% heavier than even the mighty Iowa class. The beam spanned almost 39 meters, so wide that the ship could never pass through the Panama Canal. Shipyards at Kure and Nagasaki had to be rebuilt just to handle the sheer mass. Dry docks were deepened, and new cranes installed, each capable of lifting over 100 tons. Even the slipways needed reinforcement, as the weight of the armor and guns threatened to buckle the supports. Moving a vessel of this size was an engineering puzzle. Turning required a diameter of more than 600 meters, and the hull's stability became a subject of debate among naval architects. One engineer later remarked that the Yamato felt less like a ship and more like a floating fortress. Every detail, from the reinforced bulkheads to the prismatic hull, was dictated by the demand for scale. No navy had ever attempted anything on this level before. The centerpiece of Yamato's design was its main battery, 9 Type 94 guns, each with a bore diameter of 46 centimeters. These were the largest naval guns ever put to sea. Each barrel was over 21 meters long and weighed as much as a small locomotive. A single armor-piercing shell tipped the scales at 1,460 kilograms, nearly the weight of a compact car. Fired at full charge, these shells could reach targets over 42 kilometers away, well beyond the horizon. The firepower was staggering. A full broadside delivered more than 13,000 kilograms of steel and explosives in one volley. To shield this arsenal, the designers wrapped Yamato in layers of steel armor that defied convention. The main belt along the waterline measured up to 410 millimeters thick and was sloped to deflect incoming shells. Turret faces reached 650 millimeters, thicker than the armor on most tanks of the era. Deck armor ranged from 200 to 230 millimeters, intended to resist plunging fire at long distances. Inside the citadel, vital spaces were protected by a honeycomb of bulkheads and splinter layers. Every decision reflected a single goal: to survive and win a duel against any battleship afloat. The design team believed that, with this combination of unmatched guns and fortress-like armor, Yamato could not only outgun, but outlast any adversary in a decisive fleet action. At Kure and Nagasaki, secrecy became a project all its own. The shipyards were transformed into fortresses, with dry docks covered by massive roofs to block the view from above. Workers entered through guarded gates, swore oaths of silence, and often spent months assembling a single section of hull or of a turret without ever seeing the whole design. Blueprints were split into fragments, destroyed after use, and rarely left the drafting rooms. Even most naval officers never glimpsed the full plans. This obsession with secrecy came at a staggering cost. Every layer of security slowed construction and drove up expenses. Specialized cranes capable of lifting over 100 tons had to be built just to move the armor plates. The dry docks themselves were deepened and reinforced, consuming thousands of tons of concrete and steel before the first hull plates were even laid. The price tag for Yamato soared to around 180 million yen, enough to build several aircraft carriers or dozens of destroyers. For every yen an hour spent, the Navy gambled that keeping the ship hidden would buy time and strategic surprise. In reality, it tied up resources that Japan desperately needed elsewhere, all for a ship whose true scale remained a closely guarded secret until the war was nearly over. Yamato entered service in December 1941, but the world she sailed into had already changed. In June 1942, the Battle of Midway shattered the old vision of sea power. 4 Japanese carriers were lost in a single day, all to airstrikes launched far beyond the reach of any battleship's guns. From that moment, aircraft carriers dictated the course of the Pacific War. Battleships like Yamato, built for duels that would never come, found themselves sidelined. Naval strategists began to question the value of ships whose main weapons could not even reach the enemy. Despite her massive guns and thick armor, Yamato spent most of her career as a floating headquarters or escort, watching as carriers took center stage. One historian later wrote that the age of the battleship ended not with a bang, but with the drone of aircraft engines overhead. On April 7, 1945, Yamato steamed south with 9 escorts, bound for Okinawa on a mission with no return. American codebreakers had already tracked her. By midday, the sky filled with the roar of 386 carrier-based aircraft. Dive bombers and torpedo planes attacked in relentless waves, circling the giant from every angle. Bombs tore through decks. Torpedoes slammed into her hull, 11 confirmed hits, each one flooding new compartments. Anti-aircraft guns blazed, but the swarm never let up. Fires raged below decks. Within 2 hours, the world's largest battleship rolled to port, capsized, and exploded. Nearly 3,000 crew went down with her. The very size that once promised invincibility now left her helpless, unable to dodge or hide from the storm unleashed overhead. No Navy will ever build a giant like this again. Technology and strategy have moved on, but the Yamato's legacy endures as a caution. When ambition outpaces reality, even the largest force can be rendered powerless overnight. The lesson is as relevant in today's arms race as ever.
Imagine a floating city with no zip code. A 100,000-ton fortress that launches fighter jets from its rooftop, powers itself with nuclear energy, and vanishes into the horizon for months at a time. Untouchable, invisible, and always watching. This isn't a scene from a sci-fi blockbuster. This is the real-life muscle of the United States Navy, the USS Gerald R. Ford, the largest and most advanced warship America has ever put to sea. Step aboard, and you're not just entering a ship, you're entering a self-contained universe. At over 1,100 feet long, longer than 3 football fields end to end, this aircraft carrier towers over the ocean like a steel island. It houses more than 4,500 people, including sailors, aviators, engineers, medics, chefs, and technicians. Together, they operate a city that floats, fights, and flies. But this isn't just about size, it's about what that size enables. The Ford can support more than 90 aircraft, including cutting-edge F-35C, Lightning II stealth fighters, FA-18 Super Hornets, E-2D Advanced Hawkeyes, and MH-60 helicopters. On any given day, Jets can be soaring off its deck, while helicopters scan the seas for submarines, all while deep below, nuclear reactors hum quietly in the background. And unlike earlier generations of carriers, this one doesn't rely on steam to hurl aircraft skyward. Instead, the EMALS, Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System, replaces the old steam-powered catapults with cutting-edge linear motors. Think of it like a high-speed railgun that launches 30-ton jets into the sky in less than 3 seconds. Not only is it quieter and more efficient, but it allows the Ford to launch more sorties per day than its predecessors, up to 25% more in fact. Beneath the flight deck, twin A-1B nuclear reactors sit like beating hearts. Each one can generate enough electricity to power a small city, and the Ford won't need to refuel for the next 25 years. That means it can stay at sea longer, move faster, and operate more systems without ever having to pull into port for fuel. But even with its state-of-the-art launch systems, advanced radars, and miles of cabling, the Ford is surprisingly quiet and sleek. Its new island structure, that tall control tower sitting off-center on the deck, is reshaped and radar-reduced, making it harder to detect. Internally, systems are more automated than ever before, cutting down on manual tasks and reducing the total crew needed by hundreds of sailors compared to previous carriers. Still, size and firepower mean nothing without the people to run it. And life aboard the Gerald R. Ford is no luxury cruise. The pace is relentless, the spaces are tight, and the stakes are sky high. When you're living on a warship that doubles as a mobile airport, every second matters. Above deck, the flight operations are a carefully choreographed storm, nicknamed the Dance of the Yellow Shirts, where handlers, launch crews, and pilots move in coordinated chaos, directing multi-million-dollar jets under deafening engines and unpredictable sea spray. Every hand signal, every helmet color, every blink matters. One wrong move can shut down the whole operation, or worse. Below deck, things don't slow down either. The ship's interior is a labyrinth of steel passageways, compartments, and hatches. Crew members sleep in stacked bunks, no wider than a coffin. There's no internet, no private bathrooms, and not much space to stretch your legs. But there is a chapel, a gym, a post office, even a media server loaded with movies and music downloaded before deployment. The Ford is built for endurance. Most deployments last 6 to 9 months, and during that time, sailors form a tight-knit bond built on discipline, trust, and shared pressure. While the outside world spins on, they launch jets, maintain systems, run drills, and celebrate birthdays thousands of miles from home. And yet, despite the size, despite the stress, despite the 18-hour shifts and endless metal corridors, many of them say the same thing: it becomes a second home. Because when your home has 4 acres of flight deck, 2 nuclear reactors, and can carry an air force more powerful than most countries, you don't just live in it, you live for it. To truly understand what makes the USS Gerald R. Ford the most advanced warship in U.S. history, you have to look beneath the surface. Literally. Below the flight deck lies a labyrinth of steel and systems, a hidden industrial city humming with purpose. It all begins in the control centers. Think of them as the ship's brain and nervous system. From here, officers monitor the ship's course, run radar sweeps, coordinate aircraft movements, and scan the horizon for threats. The Combat Direction Center is a dimly lit hive of glowing screens and tactical chatter, tracking everything from friendly fighters in the sky to unidentified radar blips hundreds of miles away. One screen going dark could mean nothing, or it could mean incoming danger. Nearby is the air traffic control tower perched inside the ship's radar-reducing island. It's like an airport control tower on adrenaline, managing takeoffs and landings on a pitching, rolling sea. On a calm day, it's organized chaos. In rough waters, it's a test of nerves, coordination, and constant vigilance. Then there's the engineering heart of the ship. Two A-1B nuclear reactors sit deep within armored compartments, pumping out power that feeds every corner of the carrier. From elevators that lift 70,000-pound fighter jets to the desalination systems that turn seawater into drinking water, the ship is self-sustaining. It can operate for 25 years without refueling, traveling at over 30 knots without ever stopping for gas. And if something breaks, they don't wait for help. The Ford has fully equipped machine shops on board, complete with welding bays, lathes, and even three-dimensional printers. Whether it's a busted valve or a part ripped from an aircraft engine, they fix it themselves, often while the ship is in motion. But power and performance mean little without protection. The Gerald R. Ford bristles with high-tech defenses. On the edges of the flight deck and around key control nodes, you'll find Phalanx C-IWS close-in weapon systems, rapid-fire cannons that can detect and destroy incoming missiles within seconds. They look like robotic turrets from a sci-fi movie, but they're the last line of defense if everything else fails. For longer-range threats, the ship is armed with ESSM, Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles, and CRAM launchers, which can shoot down enemy aircraft or cruise missiles well before they reach striking distance. The Ford isn't just a floating airport, it's a floating fortress, ready to defend itself at all costs. And yet, for all the technology, the most powerful force on this warship is still the people. Every sailor on board, from the junior seaman checking hydraulic lines to the officer plotting the carrier's next maneuver, is trained in damage control. Fires at sea are every sailor's nightmare. There's no fire department to call, no emergency exit. You're the firefighter, the medic, the last line of defense. Each crew member goes through drills weekly, learning how to seal off flooded compartments, use breathing gear, and contain a blaze in total darkness. They practice until it's second nature, because it has to be. The ship has a fully operational medical bay, complete with surgical tools, diagnostic gear, and even a dental chair. There's no full-time dentist, but there is a Navy corpsman trained to perform emergency procedures under remote guidance. If you get a toothache in the middle of the Atlantic, you might just get it fixed by someone who also doubles as a combat medic. And yes, for all its might, life aboard the Ford can feel like a grind. With over 4,500 souls aboard, privacy is a luxury. Sailors live in stacked racks with curtains for doors, rotating between 12-hour shifts and short stretches of downtime. The mess hall seats are limited, so meals happen in waves. One sailor eats, another cleans, another takes their spot. Meals run 24/7. From midnight pancakes to Taco Tuesdays, the galley is always buzzing. Favorites like Navy Chili Mac, fresh-baked cookies, and hand-scooped ice cream offer brief comfort in long deployments. Every meal is a moment to decompress, recharge, and just feel human again. To stay sane, sailors lean on rituals. There's Steel Beach, where the hangar deck turns into a party with burgers and music. Karaoke nights, push-up competitions. Some even write poetry or paint in their off hours. Others lose themselves in downloaded movies and music, stored on a digital media server since there's no internet while underway. And through all of it, something else grows, a sense of belonging. Even among 4,500 people, even with no windows, no fresh air, and barely any personal space, bonds form fast. You trust the person beside you with your life, and they trust you with theirs. Because in the belly of this beast, beneath the roar of jet engines and the hum of reactors, is a community, a tribe forged in fire drills, night watches, and steel. When the USS Gerald R. Ford sets sail, it doesn't travel alone. It leads what's known as a carrier strike group, a lethal armada that includes guided missile destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and supply ships. Together, they form a floating ecosystem of dominance, each vessel playing a role in protecting and amplifying the Ford's power. And that power isn't just about launching airstrikes. It's about sending a message, When a carrier group enters a region, global leaders take notice. Allies feel reassured. Adversaries start calculating risk. It's not just military, it's strategic theater. As one naval officer once put it, presence is deterrence. Sometimes, just being there is enough to stop something from starting. The USS Gerald R. Ford's presence in the Mediterranean, for instance, has already demonstrated its role as a stabilizing force amid rising global tensions. It's not about throwing punches. It's about reminding everyone what happens if someone else does. At any given time, fighter jets are conducting combat air patrols, surveillance runs, or training missions. Below deck, radar operators monitor thousands of square miles of ocean and airspace. Logistics teams prepare for replenishment at sea, where fuel and supplies are transferred from support ships mid-ocean with pinpoint precision. Every system, every person, every movement works toward one goal: being ready. That readiness goes beyond combat. In recent years, aircraft carriers have been used to deliver humanitarian aid after hurricanes, tsunamis, and earthquakes. With helicopters, medical staff, and endless supplies, a ship like the Ford becomes a lifeline, bringing hope as easily as it projects force. But for the crew, the mission is personal. Deployments can stretch across 6 to 9 months, sometimes more. They miss birthdays, holidays, and the simple joy of being home. They write letters instead of sending texts. They wait days, sometimes weeks, for a short satellite email that says, "We're okay." And yet, ask many of them, and they'll say the same thing. It's an honor. This isn't just a job. It's a legacy we're upholding. And what a legacy it is. The Gerald R. Ford is the first of a new class of aircraft carriers, built to serve for half a century. It represents the future of U.S. naval dominance, faster aircraft launches, reduced crew workload, enhanced survivability, and greater power generation for future tech like directed energy weapons and advanced radar systems. The Navy plans to build at least 4 Ford-class carriers, with the USS John F. Kennedy, CVN-79, already in the works. These ships will carry not just jets and bombs, but the blueprint for 21st century warfare. The ocean is no longer just water. It's a battleground of information, surveillance, and deterrence. And yet, even with its cutting-edge hardware and towering presence, what sets the Ford apart is still the human factor. The ones who navigate it, launch jets from its deck, scrub its floors, fix its engines, keep each other awake during long watches, laugh at bad jokes in the mess hall, and stand ready to risk everything for people they've never met. It's easy to see this ship as a machine, a war platform, a billion-dollar chunk of steel. But once you've walked its decks, stood beside a sailor pulling 18-hour shifts, or watched a pilot strap in for a night flight off a dark sea, something changes. You realize this ship isn't just designed to project power. It's designed to carry people, and people carry the mission. So next time you hear about a carrier group in the news, or spot that iconic silhouette on a horizon, remember, below that flight deck is a world of pressure, precision, and pride. The USS Gerald R. Ford isn't just the largest warship in U.S. history. It's a city that sails, a symbol that moves, and a statement that echoes across oceans. We're here, we're ready, and we don't need to shout. Because sometimes, the most powerful message is one that speaks in silence. With 4 acres of steel, a runway of firepower, and thousands of quiet professionals who keep it all afloat. The ocean still holds secrets, but this one doesn't hide. It dares you to look and see what the future.
Imagine a predator so silent, so precise, that its target never hears it coming. Now imagine that predator isn't an animal. It's 9,000 tons of hardened steel, gliding through black ocean depths like a ghost with a grudge. No sunlight, no escape, and somewhere inside that pressure hull, 50 torpedoes sit armed and waiting. This isn't a Cold War thriller, it's real. This is the Seawolf-class attack submarine, the most expensive, most advanced, and arguably the deadliest underwater weapon the United States has ever created. And it wasn't built to send a message, it was built to end one, quietly. The Seawolf was designed in secret and forged in fear. In the 1980s, US intelligence agencies confirmed that the Soviet Union was producing a new generation of ultra-quiet submarines. If the US couldn't hear them, it couldn't stop them. And that meant a potential first strike the US wouldn't even see coming. So the Navy responded with something radical, an undersea hunter that could dive deeper, move faster, and remain quieter than anything on Earth. A machine that could win a war without ever being seen. That machine was the Seawolf. Its body is wrapped in anechoic tiles, sound-absorbing panels that muffle the sub's acoustic signature, like insulation in a recording studio. Its pump-jet propulsion system replaces noisy propeller blades with a near-silent water jet, making the sub virtually invisible on sonar. Its S-6W nuclear reactor delivers power for over 30 years without refueling, meaning it can spend decades at sea without ever needing to surface. And the hull? It's made of HY-100 high-yield steel, allowing the sub to dive to depths well over 1,600 feet. Though the exact number is still classified, that's nearly half a mile beneath the ocean's surface. It's more than stealthy, it's fast. The Seawolf can travel at over 35 knots underwater, outpacing destroyers and older subs with ease. And thanks to its enormous bow-mounted sonar array, it can detect other vessels from over 100 miles away. One sailor described it like listening for footsteps in a cathedral and hearing someone breathe. But speed and silence only matter if you're armed, and the Seawolf is loaded. This class of sub carries up to 50 torpedoes and Tomahawk cruise missiles, packed into 8 660mm tubes, twice the firepower of the Los Angeles class that came before it. The torpedo room is clean, industrial, and clinical. No drama, just racks of weapons designed to end ships in seconds. Those tubes can also launch naval mines or, in certain configurations, support the deployment of undersea drones and SEAL delivery systems, especially aboard its most secretive sibling, the USS Jimmy Carter. But here's the twist. Only 3 Seawolf-class submarines were ever built. Why? Because each one cost over $3 billion to construct, more than an aircraft carrier at the time. Originally, the Navy planned to build 29 of them. But when the Cold War ended and the Soviet Union collapsed, political momentum evaporated. Congress questioned whether such an expensive machine was still necessary, and the program was slashed. Still, even among those 3 subs, one stood apart. Not because it hunted better, but because it listened, and what it listened to was never meant to be heard. You've heard of submarines that launch missiles. You've heard of submarines that hunt other submarines. But what about a submarine that disappears from public record? A vessel so secretive that even its missions are classified and its interior has never been photographed. That's the USS Jimmy Carter, and it doesn't just patrol, it eavesdrops. Officially, it's the 3rd and final Seawolf-class submarine, launched in 2004. But unofficially, it's in a category of its own. At first glance, the Jimmy Carter looks like its sisters, sleek, black, and built for deep ocean stealth. But look again, and you'll notice something strange. It's longer. About 100 feet longer, with a raised section in the middle that breaks the silhouette. That addition houses a highly classified system, known only as the Multi-Mission Platform, or MMP. The Navy won't say exactly what it does, but nearly every defense analyst agrees. It's designed for undersea espionage. Think about it. Over 97% of the world's international internet traffic flows through fiber optic cables laid across the ocean floor. And unlike satellites, these cables carry unencrypted communications because they're considered physically secure. Now, imagine a submarine that can find those cables at the bottom of the sea, splice into them without detection, and plant recording devices that capture everything. Emails, phone calls, military transmissions. The USS Jimmy Carter is believed to do exactly that. This isn't some conspiracy theory. It's rooted in history. In the 1970s, the US Navy ran a top-secret operation called Ivy Bells, where divers from specially modified submarines tapped Soviet communication cables in the Sea of Okhotsk. The operation worked until it was exposed by a spy. Jimmy Carter is widely believed to be Ivy Bell's reborn, but with 21st century tools, remotely operated vehicles, divers deployed from dry deck shelters, and advanced signal intelligence gear. Satellite imagery has shown the Carter returning from multi-month deployments with unusual wear patterns on its hull, consistent with seabed operations. And while other submarines make routine port calls and appearances at naval events, the Carter rarely surfaces in public at all. The Navy doesn't deny its existence, but it does avoid talking about it. Inside, life aboard the Carter is just as intense as the missions it carries out. The crew operates in near total silence. They don't wear boots. They wear soft-soled shoes to reduce noise. They don't slam hatches. They ease them closed like someone shutting a door during a robbery. They don't speak above a whisper in sensitive areas. There's no sunlight, no outside contact, no internet. The crew gets burst transmission emails, short text-only messages sent through encrypted satellite links. Phone calls, forget it. Entertainment comes from a hard drive loaded with movies and shows, curated in advance by morale officers. Some sailors say watching the same film 3 times in 1 week isn't uncommon. They sleep in triple-stacked bunks, known as coffin racks, with privacy curtains and reading lights. Many of them hot rack, sharing beds on alternating shifts. The sub runs 24/7, and everyone is always either on watch, on call, or sleeping in the dark. When Jimmy Carter leaves port, it disappears. Not just physically, but digitally. No tracking, no updates, not even within most of the Navy. Its movements are on a need-to-know basis, and that list is very short. The sailors who serve aboard Carter are some of the most technically skilled, psychologically vetted, and operationally trusted personnel in the U.S. military. They don't just handle pressure, they live inside it, hundreds of feet underwater, knowing that their mission might never be acknowledged, even after they retire. They're not just crew, they're ghosts who listen, and somewhere in the darkness, they're still listening. The Seawolf-class submarines were built to be unstoppable, and in every measurable way, they are. They're faster than anything else underwater, quieter than sonar can detect, deadlier than any surface warship could ever be. But in a twist worthy of military irony, they were too good to survive. Originally, the U.S. Navy planned to build 29 Seawolf-class submarines, making them the new backbone of America's undersea dominance. But the world changed. By the early 1990s, the Soviet Union had collapsed. The deep ocean arms race, the very reason Seawolf was born, was over. Overnight, the sub went from being a necessity to a Cold War relic in a post-war world. And then came the price tag. Each Seawolf-class submarine cost over $3 billion, more than an aircraft carrier at the time. Congress balked, defense priorities shifted, and the program was slashed. Only 3 submarines were ever completed: Seawolf, Connecticut, and Jimmy Carter. But these 3 became legends, because the Seawolf wasn't just good, it was generations ahead of its time. Naval analysts still describe it as the pinnacle of fast attack submarine design. Even now, no known Russian or Chinese sub matches its combination of stealth, speed, and firepower. It was designed to do one thing better than anything else on Earth: hunt silently, kill instantly, leave nothing behind. While its Ohio-class cousins carry ballistic missiles as part of America's nuclear deterrent, the Seawolf was never about threats. It was about execution. If you heard it, it was already too late. But as conflicts moved closer to shore, fighting pirates, insurgents, and rogue states, the Navy needed flexibility. So they introduced the Virginia-class, modular, multi-mission, and less than half the cost. It was a trade-off. The Virginia-class could do more types of missions, but it couldn't do any one of them better than the Seawolf. Still, the decision was made. The Seawolf's era had ended before it truly began. Or had it? Because now, the world is shifting again. In the South China Sea, China is expanding its underwater footprint, laying new seabed sensors, building advanced submarines, and militarizing deep-sea cable networks. Russia is rebuilding its Arctic submarine fleet, deploying long-range missile systems beneath melting polar ice. Suddenly, the Seawolf's original mission, deep ocean dominance, is back on the table. And guess who's still out there? Despite being over 2 decades old, the Seawolf class remains a ghost in the water, a weapon without equal, a reminder that some tools were never meant to be mass-produced. They were meant to be irreplaceable. When a Seawolf deploys, it disappears. No AIS beacons, no media fanfare, just a whisper between high-level commanders. It could be parked off an adversary's coastline, or under the Arctic shelf, or shadowing a foreign submarine from half a world away. And no one would know. Inside, the crew operates in total silence, hundreds of feet below the surface, where there's no light, no second chances, and no rescue. Every decision is high stakes. Every mistake could cost lives. These aren't just sailors, they're tacticians, engineers, and elite warriors trained to vanish. They don't deploy for glory. They deploy so that wars don't have to happen. Because in the high-stakes game of global deterrence, the Seawolf doesn't posture. It waits. It waits in the dark. It waits in silence, right below your feet. And if the day ever comes when it's needed, it won't announce itself. It'll just be there, exactly where it was always meant to be.
A ship nearly the size of an aircraft carrier, built to land thousands of Marines where no port exists. This is not just the largest vessel for amphibious assault in the US Navy. It is the answer to a mission that once seemed impossible. Since the first Tarawa class launched in 1976, these floating fortresses have changed the rules of war at sea. But why do they need to be so massive, and what challenge pushed the US Navy to build ever bigger? The true scale and purpose defies what most people think. World War II left a lasting lesson for the US Navy. Winning at sea meant nothing if troops and equipment could not get ashore. In places like Normandy and Iwo Jima, American forces faced brutal resistance, not just from enemy fire, but from the sheer difficulty of moving men and armor from ship to shore. Beaches turned into bottlenecks, shallow reefs, mines, and the lack of ports exposed landing craft to danger and delayed the arrival of reinforcements. Even with overwhelming naval power, the ability to project force onto land remained limited by the tools of the era. By the 1970s, military planners knew the old approach could not keep up with new threats. Traditional landing ships were too small, too slow, and too specialized. The Navy needed a platform that could combine the strengths of helicopter carriers, landing docks, and command ships, something big enough to carry an entire Marine force, launch aircraft, and deliver heavy vehicles, all from a single hull. On May 29, 1976, the USS Tarawa LHA-1 entered service, answering that call. At about 820 feet long and nearly 40,000 tons, Tarawa matched the size of a World War II fleet carrier, but its mission was different. Move Marines ashore rapidly, by air and by sea, without relying on any port. Tarawa's design combined a massive flight deck, a cavernous hangar, and a floodable well deck for landing craft. For the first time, the Navy could launch helicopters and surface connectors side by side, delivering troops and armor directly onto hostile beaches. This new ship type was not just a bigger vessel, it was a new answer to the sea-to-shore problem, setting a standard that would shape every amphibious assault ship to follow. Size alone doesn't capture what sets these ships apart. In today's fleet, two classes of giants dominate the US Navy's amphibious force, the Wasp-class LHDs and the America-class LHAs. Each is a floating stronghold designed to serve as both an air base and a launch platform for amphibious assault. The numbers tell the story. A Wasp-class ship stretches 844 feet from bow to stern, and, fully loaded, weighs between 40,358 and 41,772 long tons. The America class, slightly longer at 855 feet, tips the scales even higher, up to 43,745 long tons in its latest versions. Both classes dwarf the landing ships of previous generations. For perspective, their length rivals that of a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier from the 1970s, yet their mission is specialized: to enable a Marine force to move from sea to shore anywhere in the world without relying on a port. Displacement numbers matter here. The extra weight isn't just armor or steel, it is aviation fuel, vehicle storage, medical facilities, and the infrastructure needed to support more than 2,000 Marines and sailors for weeks at a time. While the Wasp class balances a large flight deck with a full-sized well deck for landing craft, the America class pushes the envelope further. Its early models sacrifice the well deck for even greater aviation capacity, while later ships restore the well deck to combine both strengths. Whichever class you measure, these ships represent the largest, most versatile amphibious platforms the Navy has ever built, purpose-built to deliver power ashore by air and by sea at a scale unmatched anywhere else. Move a Marine force from ship to shore anywhere in the world without a port. That is the mission the Navy gives its largest amphibious assault ships. Every detail of their design exists to make that mission possible, quickly, reliably, and under fire if needed. The flight deck stretches nearly the length of the ship, supporting a constant rhythm of helicopters, tilt rotors, and short takeoff jets. Below, a hangar the size of a city block holds aircraft waiting for their next sortie, with elevators moving them between decks in minutes. At the stern, the well deck forms the ship's hidden engine for surface assault. Flooded by seawater, it allows landing craft to float in and out, loading up with tanks and vehicles, then racing ashore. Vehicle storage spans multiple decks connected by ramps wide enough for heavy armor. Cargo elevators and passageways keep supplies moving to where they are needed, whether it is ammunition to the flight deck or rations to the galley. Medical facilities mirror a small hospital ready for combat casualties or disaster relief. Command centers bristle with screens and radios, coordinating air and surface operations round the clock. Berthing spaces, galleys, and workshops sustain more than 2,000 people for weeks at sea. The anatomy of these ships is no accident. Flight deck, hangar, well deck, vehicle stowage, and command spaces work together as a single system. The goal is to deliver Marines, their equipment, and their support ashore in a rapid, repeatable cycle, by air and by sea, wherever the mission demands. Designers face a tough choice with every new amphibious assault ship: maximize aviation or preserve the ability to launch surface connectors. The America class, LHA, especially in its earliest form, leans hard toward AIR power. By removing the well deck, a massive compartment at the stern measuring roughly 266 feet long, 50 feet wide, and 28 feet high, the first two America-class ships gained extra space for aircraft, fuel, and maintenance. This allowed them to operate a formidable mix of aircraft, including F-35B, Lightning II fighters, MV-22 Ospreys, CH-53E Super Stallions, and a suite of attack and utility helicopters. The flight deck and hangar became the heart of the ship, with crews working around the clock to keep sorties flowing and maintain readiness for vertical assaults. But this air-dominant approach came with a cost. Without a well deck, the ship could not launch landing craft or deliver heavy vehicles directly to shore. Operational feedback from Marines and Navy planners soon made it clear: flexibility mattered more than pure aviation volume. The next evolution, starting with LHA-8 Bougainville, brought the well deck back. Now the ship could once again balance air and surface assault, giving commanders more options and restoring the full range of amphibious capability. LCAC landing craft air cushion are the high-speed workhorses that turn these ships into true amphibious assault platforms. With a payload of 60 to 75 tons, each LCAC can haul an M1 Abrams tank or a platoon of armored vehicles straight from the ship's well deck to a hostile beach. And speed is their edge. Fully loaded, an LCAC can reach more than 40 knots. That is over 45 miles per hour, fast enough to cover 25 nautical miles from ship to shore in under an hour. The numbers add up quickly. A single Wasp-class ship can cycle 3 LCAC craft through its well deck, each making 4 to 6 round trips per day. That means up to 18 sorties in 24 hours, moving as much as 1,000 tons of combat power ashore before the first sunset. For the ship's crew and LCAC operators, this tempo demands precision, loading, launching, and recovering craft in a rhythm that keeps the assault moving forward without pause. Life aboard an amphibious assault ship is sustained by a complex web of systems and people working around the clock. A Wasp-class vessel carries a ship's company of 66 officers and over 1,000 enlisted sailors, plus nearly 1,700 Marines, numbers that can surge even higher during operations. Every day the galleys prepare up to 18,000 meals, drawing on vast storerooms and refrigerated spaces that stock weeks' worth of food. Water production reaches up to 400,000 gallons per day, supporting everything from hydration to medical care. The ship's medical facilities rival a small hospital with multiple operating rooms, intensive care beds, and the capacity to treat dozens of casualties at once. Maintenance teams keep engines, generators, and aviation fuel systems running, while logistics specialists manage the flow of ammunition, spare parts, and supplies. At full speed, these ships can exceed 20 knots, repositioning an entire amphibious group across hundreds of miles in a day. Self-defense is layered. Ram and Sea Sparrow missile launchers, Phalanx, CYWS, and heavy machine guns stand ready, but ultimate protection comes from operating as part of a larger group. Alone, even the largest amphibious assault ship depends on its crew, its systems, and the support of the fleet to survive and accomplish its mission. Right now, these ships anchor U.S. power wherever ports don't exist, projecting force, but also deterrence, in an unstable world. As global flashpoints shift to coastlines and contested islands, the ability to land a force from sea remains a question of security. Mobility decides who shapes tomorrow's battlefield.
A $550 million megaship, nearly 900 feet long, designed not to fight wars, but to absorb their aftermath. This is the United States Navy's hospital that happens to float. Converted from a commercial supertanker, USNS Mercy delivers up to 1,000 beds and 12 operating rooms, yet depends on a single helicopter pad to receive the wounded. It is both a diplomatic weapon, marked by red crosses, and a Cold War relic, carrying immense value but startling vulnerability. Why does the United States still rely on a city-sized hospital at sea? And what happens if its role cannot be replaced? The answer begins where oil once gave way to medicine. In the mid-1980s, United States Navy planners faced a stark choice: build a hospital ship from scratch, or gamble on transforming a surplus oil tanker into something the world had never seen. The answer was driven by budget, urgency, and Cold War logic. At a time when new warships could cost billions of dollars, the Navy and the Military Sealift Command saw an opening. For about $550 million, spread across planning, shipyard work, and military outfitting, they could take the massive hull of the SS Worth, a San Clemente-class commercial supertanker, and convert it into a floating trauma center capable of absorbing mass casualties far from home. Conversion began in July 1984 at National Steel and Shipbuilding in San Diego, with the ship entering service in late 1986. The calculus was simple but bold. Repurposing an oil carrier offered unmatched internal volume, stability, and speed to delivery compared to building new. The program manager's view was clear. Every dollar saved on hull construction could be spent on medical capacity, technology, and readiness. Instead of a warship with a sickbay, the Navy would get a city-sized hospital that could steam into disaster zones or war theaters, ready to absorb the human cost of conflict. This was a Cold War investment, designed to deliver medical power at a scale no rival could match, and to do it fast before the next crisis struck. Stretching 894 feet from bow to stern, The hull beneath USNS Mercy is pure commercial muscle. This is no sleek warship, but a San Clemente-class supertanker repurposed for medicine at a scale few hospitals on land or sea can rival. With a beam of 106 feet and a displacement topping 69,360 tons, the ship's sheer volume is staggering. The double-bottomed hull, originally built to haul crude oil across oceans, now serves a different kind of endurance. It steadies the vessel against Pacific swells, giving surgeons a stable platform for trauma care even in rough seas. The dimensions are not just impressive, they are enabling. Wide corridors, vast deckhouses, and cavernous holds become medical wards, operating suites, and supply stores. This city-sized volume is what makes the idea possible. A floating hospital with enough space for 1,000 beds, 12 operating rooms, and the infrastructure to run them all. The DNA of a supertanker, designed for global range and heavy cargo, becomes the backbone of a mobile trauma center, able to absorb the human cost of war, disaster, or pandemic far from shore. Inside the hull, the numbers feel almost unreal. Mercy is equipped to care for up to 1,000 patients at once, more than many city hospitals on land. The ship holds 12 fully equipped operating rooms, ready for round-the-clock trauma surgery. 80 beds are set aside for intensive care, each with the monitors, ventilators, and backup power needed to keep the sickest patients alive. There are another 20 beds for recovery, 280 for intermediate care, 120 for lighter cases, and 500 for those who need long-term support. The onboard medical staff can swell to more than 1,200, including Navy doctors, nurses, corpsmen, and support personnel, all working alongside a civilian crew. In practical terms, this means Mercy can handle mass casualties from a major battle, a natural disaster, or a pandemic, absorbing patients at a scale that would overwhelm most regional health systems. For the medical officers who run these decks, this is not just a ship. It is a mobile hospital ecosystem designed to deliver care on a scale and speed that few places on Earth can match. Casualties arrive at the stern, and the process begins in a space designed for speed and clarity. The triage team, led by a Navy medical officer, sorts each patient by urgency, directing the most critical cases straight to one of 12 operating rooms. Just steps away, surgical teams work in shifts, using equipment that rivals any major hospital. After surgery, patients move to recovery beds or one of the 80 intensive care units, each monitored around the clock. For those facing longer recoveries, intermediate and limited care wards provide space for hundreds more. Supporting this flow is a backbone of medical infrastructure. 2 oxygen plants feed clean air to every ward and operating room. The ship's blood bank can store up to 5,000 units, ready for mass transfusions if needed. Clinical labs process samples around the clock, while the pharmacy stocks everything from antibiotics to pain management. Elevators and wide corridors connect each link in the chain, allowing medical teams to move patients and supplies with an efficiency that would be impossible in a landlocked crisis. Every step, from triage to recovery, is contained within this floating system, built to keep care moving, no matter what waits outside. Every patient on USNS Mercy has to make it through one narrow gateway, the flight deck. For all its hospital-scale numbers, 12 operating rooms, and 1,000 beds, the ship relies on a single helicopter pad at the stern. In high-tempo missions, the pace is not set by how fast surgeons can work, but by how quickly the flight deck officer can cycle aircraft in and out. The deck is cleared for one H-60 Seahawk at a time, with only temporary shelter for a second. Crews work under pressure, juggling landing schedules, patient transfers, and unpredictable weather. Mercy holds 90,000 gallons of JP-5 jet fuel, enough to keep helicopters coming for days. but the system is only as fast as the deck can turn over. Before the 2021 upgrade, the ship could not even accept the larger V-22 Osprey, limiting options for mass casualty events. Even now, with the reinforced deck and new gear, the bottleneck remains. No matter how many beds are ready inside, the real ceiling on care is how quickly the next helicopter can land. For the flight deck team, every minute counts, and every delay ripples through the entire floating hospital behind them. Painted white with giant red crosses, USNS Mercy carries a different kind of power into port. By international law, these markings declare her a protected non-combatant, off limits to attack under the Geneva Conventions. The message goes further. When the Mercy drops anchor off Indonesia after a tsunami, or pulls alongside a Pacific island for a medical exercise, she is not just a hospital, she is a statement. The ship's presence signals that the United States can deliver massive aid without sending troops or warships. In exercises like Pacific Partnership, local doctors and nurses join Navy medical teams on board, building trust and skills that last long after the ship departs. For many partner nations, seeing the Mercy's civilian master and hybrid crew, with civilian mariners running the engines and Navy doctors running the wards, underscores that this is not an occupation force. It is a floating embassy of medicine. In regions wary of foreign military power, the ship's humanitarian identity opens doors that might otherwise stay closed. The hull may be steel, but its real strength is diplomatic, forging alliances, shifting opinions, and making friends for the United States without firing a shot. Mercy's real test has never been in theory, but in action. During Operation Desert Storm, the ship treated more than 690 patients and carried out over 200 surgeries, with medical teams working around the clock as casualties arrived in waves. After the 2004 tsunami struck Indonesia, helicopters shuttled burn and trauma victims to the deck, pushing the crew to care for more than 700 patients and to perform 200 surgeries, even as weather and flight deck traffic slowed the flow. In Haiti's 2010 earthquake aftermath, Mercy's wards filled with over 1,000 injured, stabilizing the region's shattered health system. In 2020, as COVID-19 threatened to overwhelm Los Angeles, Mercy stood ready as a relief valve, its sheer presence helping to keep local hospitals from collapse. Each mission exposed the limits of access and speed, but also proved the ship's value when disaster outpaces everything else on land. For all its medical might, Mercy is exposed in ways no warship would accept. The ship is unarmed, painted white, and topped with red crosses, protected by law but not by armor. Its hull, built for oil not battle, draws a deep draft that limits where it can anchor, and its top speed barely reaches 17.5 knots. In a high-threat zone, the risk is real. A single mine, a missile, or a swarm of small boats could cripple the vessel before help arrives. Mercy always needs an armed escort when danger is near. The very design that delivers unmatched care also leaves the ship vulnerable, forcing commanders to weigh every deployment against the possibility of loss. The Navy's next step is the Expeditionary Medical Ship, with 124 beds, 4 operating rooms, and top speeds over 30 knots. But can smaller and faster ships ever truly replace the scale of a 1,000-bed hospital at sea? Today, a Cold War-scale hospital ship still waits offshore. It is neither obsolete nor easily replaced. Disasters, pandemics, and conflict keep proving how fragile land-based care can be. Mercy's existence is a $500 million bet that, when a crisis overwhelms, there is no substitute for scale at sea. What would we risk without it?